Good evening, everyone. My name is Doug. Social media, is it brilliant branding or just banter gone bonkers? Tonight, we're going to discuss social media and footballers, and in particular, social media at Rangers. I'm going to delve into it with Pal tonight and hopefully get some questions from you guys. Welcome to another Rangers Journal.
It's the Rangers Journal night.
Joining me this evening, I have my most esteemed guest. I've got Cammy joining us. Welcome, Cammy. Thanks for coming on.
Aye, but I don't think this was the planned agenda point when I agreed to do Wednesday night, right enough. But it's one that I look forward to getting stuck into.
I'm glad to have you anyway. I'm sure you'll have plenty of words of wisdom nonetheless. So, as I said in the intro this evening, we're going to talk a little bit about social media, and in particular, social media in relation to Rangers as well. We want to hear your guys' thoughts on the topic also, and we're also going to be running a wee competition tonight to give one of you guys the chance to get the opportunity to suggest a topic for us to do on a future pod. So we will get to that later on as well. So just as a general intro, obviously, as I say, we're talking about social media and in particular players' use of social media. From the players' point of view, we'll touch on and also look at it from the fans' point of view and how they can kind of clash as well. Players obviously look at social media as a branding tool. It allows fans of unprecedented access over the last sort of couple of, I suppose a couple of decades now it is, since it's really kicked off to the stars that they adore outside of the stadium and outside of the terraces, which has its pros and, as we'll talk about today as well, its cons. So just as a kind of opener, Cammy, just to come to you just for a couple of general thoughts on your take in terms of social media and the way players use it.
Well, I think I tend to look at it from a Rangers point of view. You know, I mean, it's like we'll use Instagram. I have an Instagram account. I would call myself a bit of a novice with regard to that. I follow many other footballers, Jude Bellingham. It's just a curiosity thing, just to see what he's up to and that sort of thing. But these people have massive teams behind them, although I do think these guys still have the ability to engage and interact when they choose, you know. But it's the overriding thing, for Rangers, we spoke about it briefly just before we came on. Winning is the key with regard to anything to do with Rangers. And I think the outcry, for want of a better word, over highlight reels, the year of 2023 reels, all that sort of situation, I don't think there's the same pantomime or noise if you are winning 1, 2, 3 trophies on a consistent basis. I think Rangers fans, I go back way before social media when the 9 in a row team they were up to all things pre-social media. And I think a lot of fans, I mean, it's a different situation, but it's similar in a way that we knew what the players were up to. But on a Saturday, they were turning up. In games against Celtic, they were turning up. In cup finals, they were turning up. So that's, with regard to Rangers, I think there's pros and cons, as you say. But my thing is, I think people just get their panties in a knot if it's came off the back of a bad result or a bad season, basically.
Absolutely. Like you say, we touched on this just before when we were chatting. A lot of the problems we'll talk about tonight are fixed by winning, and that's particularly true at Rangers. One of the other aspects of social media that we've got a lot of comments coming in already, and we've got one that dovetails into our first topic perfectly, which comes from Billy here. She said, players unfortunately are a product now. They have to promote their brand, and social media is the main way to do that. The genie is out of the bottle, for better or worse. So, Billy touches on a key point that's the sort of the opener to our discussion tonight, which is players and branding. And not just for the players, but also for the club also. So one of the things I've done in sort of prep for tonight is had a look at some of the players and also the club's social media, and particularly the impact of the followers. So we've got 4 examples here that people can look at. So the top left one is Yanis Hadji, bottom left is Jack Butland, top right is Dujon Sterling, and then the bottom right is the Rangers Football Club Instagram. The interesting things I want to touch on is obviously the peaks that each of these have. So if we have a look at Yanis Hadji's, there's a really high peak just to the right-hand side. You might not be able to read the access, but that peak comes just after January, I think, 2020 was it, which, funnily enough, is when Yanis first came on loan to Rangers. And you can see the massive spike that had to his following there. When you look at Jack Butland's, you can see Jack Butland's followers were pretty steady for a long time, which makes a lot of sense. Jack Butland was behind the scenes, really second, third goalkeeper in the Prem, and then all of a sudden he has this ginormous spike in the last third. That spike is exactly when he signed for Manchester United. Funnily enough, that can gather you a bit of interest. With Dujon there, you can see obviously his is a little bit more up and down. He obviously has been on loan quite a few times, and played for a couple of different teams. But the main spike I wanted to point out is sort of the last of the biggest ones, which is his tallest spike. Can you guess what he did and who he might have signed for at that point, Cammy?
Well, I would guess that would maybe be last summer when he's signed for the famous.
Exactly. So you can see, he's getting a boost there. So in terms of those 3, I think that really shows that something that I touched on about players and social media when we talked about Connor Barron in a pod a couple of days ago. Some players will come to Rangers and might not even have social media. We'll touch on the players that do have it later. But coming to a club like Rangers, or as you see with Jack Butland's one, going to somewhere like Man United, which from a social media perspective is Rangers on steroids. It's difficult for them to not notice how they can build their brand when they come to a club like Rangers with history, with fans that are interested, and that are going to follow them across different social medias. As this is just Instagram, this particular one. The last graph there, as I say, is the club one, and there's 2 sort of high spikes there. The second one is around about the middle of the year in 2022. Don't know if you can think of anything in particular Rangers were up to the middle of the year 2022. Europa League final. So even for the club, big things have big impacts on social media, and that's something that I think not only for the players but for the club as well is a big branding point. And so I'd maybe just get your thoughts on, do you think it's something that not just players but the club need to be looking at to leverage its brand on social media as well as players?
It's very interesting and it's not a huge surprise. I mean, I think we joked one of the early summer signings, I'll say hefty, apart pardon my pronunciation if I've butchered that one, but I think he will say he had 3,000 followers on X stroke Twitter, and I think the thing was, I'll wait to see how many he's got by the weekend, sort of situation, you know. But I think it's Rangers fans consume everything about our club 24/7. You know, I mean, it's that is what I've had that conversation with some people on X in the last few days, and I think with regard to the club account, going back to what's that, April, May 2022, you know, that was the point. And you imagine if Rangers had went on to win the Europa League, the sort of spike that you would have, you would have had a Super Cup final and all that sort of stuff off the back of that, you know. So I think success breeds success, and in an individual and as a club, you know. So I think that's I think they both it goes hand in hand.
Absolutely, and I think particularly if the club should be looking to leverage these things, and supporting the players in that endeavour as well, because something that I hadn't really crossed my mind before, but when thinking about this as well, obviously players are building their brands primarily for themselves. They want to get endorsements and things that will help to raise their income for what is ultimately a short career. But players' profiles are important in terms of sales as well. So, if we want to sell players, we want them to have strong profiles and global profiles, and social media can help them with that also. Of course, one of the downsides to being on social media is that they can make faux pas. That can be quite a divisive topic amongst the fan base. I don't know. Do you remember any particular Rangers or otherwise, apart from the very recent ones? Maybe in the earlier days of social media, do you remember any particular examples of players putting their foot in it?
Josh Windass, PTSD for Josh Windass on Twitter. You know, he was very active with regard to, and it wasn't even as much putting his foot in it. He loved a discussion, for want of a better expression. You know, it's I mean, we're going back a few years now, sort of situation, you know, and I'm not sure if he still is, as he's got older and maybe matured a wee bit. I don't know if he was just bored when he was in Glasgow, but that's one that sort of sticks in my mind, and it's not necessarily he made mistakes. It was just it was a time where we were going through not the best of times, sort of situation. You know, we were still trying to get back into the top league, and he's getting involved in sort of comments, and he done it even after he left Rangers, when there was Rangers fans sort of chipping into him, and he would always bite back, you know. But I think that's the sort of, you might refresh my memory of others, but that's certainly Josh Windass is one, and just his general usage on Twitter at that point.
Absolutely, yeah. I can remember some of that as well. So yeah, I thought we could have a little bit of fun and look at some of the high-profile examples. I decided somewhat selfishly to shy away from the Rangers ones, to keep us looking good. So I've got a couple of examples here of footballers who put their, or indeed clubs that have put their foot in it. So people may remember Wayne Rooney joining Twitter back in the day, trying to DM Rio Ferdinand to offer him a lift. But he actually just sent that out to the entire world. So that was Wayne Rooney's first tweet to the world. We've got Christian Benteke, whose team not only suggested he'd signed for Burnley when he'd in fact signed for Crystal Palace, but failed to spell Burnley correctly when doing so, causing him to have to tweet out to confirm that he had in fact signed for Crystal Palace. But that brings up a point that we'll touch on later as well about should players do these things on their own or have backroom teams. There's the official Everton page. Whoever runs that obviously forgot they were signed in and tweeted out on the Everton account, "Best day out with the best sis in the world." So unless they're talking about their sister club, which I highly doubt, I think that was meant to be on their personal one. And the one that I particularly remember is Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain there during the sort of the tail end of Arsene Wenger's reign after Arsenal lost 3-0 to Chelsea, and Oxlade-Chamberlain liked and Wenger needs to go post, which obviously was not a good look for Wenger, Oxlade-Chamberlain or Arsenal. So players can get themselves into a bit of bother, and obviously when they do, that elicits a reaction, as we've seen on Rangers social media, or Rangers players' social media recently, which we'll talk about later on. And that kind of leads to the darker side, I think, of the discussion, which is the abuse the players get when they be on social media. I had a look today at a study of Twitter, which was done by the Alan Turing Institute, where they tracked abuse through across 5 months. It was 100 and something days within those 5 months of the 21-22 Premier League season. So you can see a little bit of detail of what they found there. So just under half of the tweets that were put to players were not positive. So a large chunk of them were kind of neutral, which is probably not so bad. And then you've got that chunk there of about 15%, which they characterised as critical or abusive. So critical was sort of criticising and saying things that were not nice, but maybe not quite as mean as just full-on abuse. And a section there of just under, or about 3.5%, which was straight-up abuse, which covered all sorts of things from sort of just straightforward stuff to more serious criminal level abuse as well. There was over 60,000 abusive tweets, and of all the players that they looked at, 12 players accounted for 50% of all of the tweets as well. And this is the part where I think it starts to become relevant to us as well. Because in that top 10, 8 of the top 10 players on that group who got the most abuse all played for Man United. And I think that's probably, I would bet money on that mirroring in Scotland, that if you were to do a similar study of Scottish football, the Rangers and Celtic players, to be equal to both sides of the side, would fill that top 10 probably exclusively, if not more so, with the sort of the thing there. And we've got a particular example. As I say, the abuse can be quite serious. Some players, the Professional Football Association in England do have a player guideline pamphlet for social media. I was unable to find anything similar from the SFA, not published at least, although I did find some contacts, but I didn't have a chance to contact anyone to get anything further. So I don't know if they have anything. I would assume that they will, but this is the example I could find. And one of the case studies here was, again, the other aspect to this as well, Rangers being a global club, this abuse can come from anywhere. In this particular case, Neil Maupay, the then, I'm not sure where he is now, if he's still there now, but the then Brighton player, was receiving death threats from a 19-year-old in Singapore who was eventually handed a 9-month probation order as a result of the abuse that he was sending his way. So there is that sort of downside to that. Do you have any thoughts on, what you've experienced or seen in terms of social media and the experience that you think Rangers players receive in that regard?
See, just in general, I think there's one of the comments there, William, just there. If they post anything, they should turn comments off, but they love the attention and likes. Now, I think I'm certainly not in any way, shape or form famous, but on Twitter, you can only get replies. You can edit who is able to engage with you, and I think it reduces the amount of idiots that can jump onto your post from any other club who they happen to see you. So that's just me. So the same principle applies with regard to any high profile footballer that's on Twitter. Same situation with regard to Instagram. As I say, I'm a bit of a novice with regard to Instagram, but I know for a fact in recent weeks we've obviously had a number of players have left and they've done a video, or they've done a wee thanks to the fans and all that sort of stuff. But you couldn't comment. I know John Lundstrom for it as an example. You couldn't. He's obviously limited who can reply. I'm assuming it's people that he follows back, sort of situation, So I think with regard to DMs, messages coming direct to the players, I think them and their people. So I don't know if the player or whoever manages their account are fully skilled with regard to what just trying to minimise the level of toxic comments that you get back. I mean, in an ideal world, you would love to be able to engage and everybody engage in a common sense fashion, but that's not how it operates. So I think that the players and the people that are running their accounts, I think just be a bit canny, just be a bit smarter with regard to allowing any Tom, Dick, or Harry to comment from here or the other side of the world, basically.
And do you think when it comes to administering their accounts, do you think all players should have a team that run it for them, or do you think they're better off doing it themselves?
I think if you're massive, I think if you're somebody like Jude Bellingham or Cristiano Ronaldo, or somebody that's got like 90 million followers, or I've just picked that number, but I'd imagine that these guys are going to have a lot of high-profile sponsorship agreements, paid partnerships, all that sort of stuff. So I don't think, and I don't believe any of these highlight reels, John Lundstrom or James Tavernier or any of these guys are pulling this together when they get home for training. They've got people that will be doing that. So I think that if you're massive, I think you should by all means have people. But I think in this country, I think in Scotland, you could still have somebody that had the ability to update your account. But what I think you find is the player, does somebody actually does somebody check it before it actually is posted? I think if I was signing myself to something, I would want to make sure that I had actually read the content or looked at the video and watched the video and went, well, I'm not too sure that's that. But how many people are actually doing that? And I think that from a Rangers point of view causes a lot of the angst, with regard to particularly the highlights reels and stuff. And I just think, so. To get back to answer your question, I think if you're massive with a huge number of followers, I think by all means. But I think you can even see it with Jude Bellingham at the Euros. He's still putting bits on his stories and that sort of situation, and he's still using it. But I'd imagine there's still a team behind him that's maybe putting the more general stuff. So I think it's just about striking that balance and just having presenting yourself in the best possible way.
Absolutely, I think I actually, funny you mentioned Cristiano Ronaldo. I actually looked him up today. He has 633 million followers on his account, which is an absolutely ludicrous number of people.
You wonder how many people does he follow himself? You know,
I know.
I bet you it's not that. That's for sure.
No, I imagine not. Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting one. The point you make about proofreading or proof watching the videos. I see a lot of comments about that. Or is someone not looked this over? Has someone not checked this to read the room? As you said sort of earlier on, but I think part of the issue with that is a lot of the time I would put money on they probably have, but there's a clash between the purpose of what they're using their social media for, and what fans want to see from it. And that's a clash that again is only going to be healed if we were winning, because when you look at things like, I mean, so Tavernier, for example, pretty much every year puts out a wee video reel of his kind of personal highlights, and he's one of the few players that usually has highlights every single year. But we've obviously said just before we came on, not long before, I think it was an hour or two ago, Seamus put up some of his highlights, and fans can have quite negative reactions to them, because obviously when fans want to see highlight reels that end with trophies being lifted, and not just I made a good tackle in that game, but we lost it. I scored a good free kick in that game, but we lost it. And obviously, ultimately, these things are there to showcase the player rather than necessarily showcase the club. And so there's that.
See, just while you're talking about that, the funny one, and it isn't fun. You can almost laugh at it. John Lundstrom, his farewell message had the tackle that he got the red card.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean, if you don't laugh, you know what I mean. That's just. I think at times you can overcomplicate a farewell message. I think Ryan Jack had it on point, where he just put a heartfelt message, and that was it. There wasn't any badge kissing or celebrating a corner and all that sort of stuff that you get in some of the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, videos like that or moments like that in videos, in my mind, I just picture there's like a videographer, or an editor is sitting there. He's got clips from the season, and he's picking things that look good. Because if you remove the context of the game and the fact he got sent off, it looks great on video. He's flying in, sliding away, and anyone that's not got the context probably looks at it and makes him look like a bit Roy the Rovers all in kind of thing. But when your primary audience is still your the Rangers fans that have been following you, and they're fully aware of the context of that, it's still surprised it comes back in you.
JD's comments spot on with regard to Looney. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like you just show the goal against Leipzig on repeat, and then just the 10 minutes after the final whistle. Yep. No disrespect to John Lundstrom, but that is very much you could just have done a highlights reel of Thursday nights effectively. You know what I mean? It's like that was very much his highlight as a Rangers player. And I don't know. It's like, do the people that are, there's a videographer and stuff, do they have somebody that's actually, I'm not saying consult with a Rangers fan, but there has to be somebody employed by Rangers Football Club that is the point of contact, that can, me or you are the, you get it sent to you, you look at it, and you provide, you almost quality assure it before it actually goes out. I know it's probably overcomplicating things, but I think that sort of thing, if that was done, then you just help yourself. You help yourself, you help your club if you're just putting it out, and it's not something that's going to antagonise.
Yeah. I think it's unfortunate it was such a prominent part of the Lunchtime video. When I think back again at some of the Tavernier ones, one of the criticised bits was again it was a tackle we made in one of the Old Firm games, which obviously we lost. And people made a lot of criticism for that. And from someone that's done, albeit very little, but some video editing in my younger days, tackles make good padding. Between obviously your goals and trophies and things like that are your highlights of a video, and they're the sort of the money shots, if you like. But you need to pad them out a little bit, because if you just have goal after goal after goal, your video is generally not so good unless you're doing like a top 10 goal sort of thing. And that's why I think you get these little mini bits of tackles and stuff. But like you say, fans pour over everything and in detail, and they pick those things apart, which causes, as I say,
it's one of these things. I think 99% of the highlights reel could be acceptable to the vast majority of the support, but you'll always focus on the 1% where it's a player has put something in a game where you've lost, or I think that's the negative will always get far more focus than the positive.
Absolutely. I mean, that's another big part of the problem. Negative things, headlines, etc., get people in, and algorithms learn that, and therefore that's what they serve. Okay, so we'll move ourselves forward a little bit. I've got a mini quiz. One question that I'll put to you, Cammy, but also to you guys in the chat if you want to put a guess in. So I went through Rangers' official Instagram channel and picked out all of the current playing squad, including younger players that have an Instagram account. Would you like to guess how many of the current squad have an Instagram account? Give or take one or two. I'll not claim to know every single young player off by heart, so I might have missed one or two. But what would your ballpark figure be?
So are we going like first team squad, or
primarily first team squad? Yeah, there's a couple of younger players in there, but I think almost all of them are in or about the first team squad.
I'd probably say about 28, 30, 28 to go 28.
28, 30. Okay, and we've got JD's got 42. Paul says 35. Charles is 26. Oh, sorry, JD's saying 23. Paul's now going to 29. We're getting answers all over the place. I shall put you out of your misery and say that Paul is bang on the number. I found 29 players who have Instagram accounts. As I say, don't take me at gospel. There might be one or two I might have missed. I was scrolling in the wee hours of yesterday morning. But you can see a fair swap there. The majority of them are authorised accounts. Paul is enjoying his win there. I did get that. I did think that was what you were getting at there, JD, with 42. So yeah, we've got 29 players there. You can see a lot of the first teamers are in there. Quite a few of the younger guys as well, which you would probably expect. Social media, I think, is predominantly the sort of younger, the interest of the younger demographic. So a lot of the younger players are in there. I went to the effort of adding up all of their followers, so they've got a combined 2.8, just over 2.8 million followers. Which, when you consider Ronaldo's 633 million, we have less than 0.5% in terms of those players combined. So it puts a bit of perspective into just how ridiculously popular Ronaldo is. So you've got quite a few players there that are on social media. Is there anyone in there that surprises you at all? Do you think there's anyone there that wouldn't have it, or?
I think it's one of those. I think a lot of players have maybe got the account but aren't particularly active, or it's. Yeah. I think that's the I think that's the thing. You know, there's a difference between having an account and being living your life consistently on it. You know, I mean, there'll be some players that will just be maybe I think like the manager. The manager's got an Instagram account, and it's all very short and sweet sort of stuff. You know, maybe after a game, or like in the summer when he was on his holidays and that sort of thing. You know, whereas there's other players that are on their stories every other day, and you know, posing in the garden, and you know, moody modelling shots and all that sort of stuff. You know, so I think I expected the number to be pretty much what I had sort of shot for. You know, so but I think some use it far more than others, which is obvious. You know, there's certain players obviously get the main focus, and I think they're amongst the ones that probably use it more frequently.
Yeah, definitely. I think looking through them, there's a mix there. There's some that haven't really used it much at all. There's some that, you know, post quite regularly. Obviously, you see Tav posting quite regularly on his one, and Todd Cantwell, two players we'll touch on in a little bit. Quite a few of the younger players have got reasonable numbers in there. I noticed as well that it was more common for the younger players to have their accounts privated or have like comments turned off and things like that, which I think is probably also more to be expected, as their accounts, although quite a few of them are still in the tens of thousands. There were one or two that were just in the sort of couple of thousand, and so their accounts are probably still maybe a bit more personal than, say, branded. How much input do you think the club should have in terms of the players' social medias? Is it something they should be paying real close attention to? Do you think we should have a dedicated person within the club that's keeping a track of the players' social medias and what they're posting, making sure that it's, you know, fit for purpose within club values and things like that? And also, on the flip side to that, how much do you think the club should be providing support to the players to sort of properly there's a word there, I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say, to help them, you know, run it in the right way?
I mean, I think going back to what I sort of said earlier with regard to the highlights reels and that sort of thing, that if you had a sort of point of contact or designated people, that's their one of their responsibilities within the, I'm not saying player liaison, but something that's off the back of that. You know, I mean, we've got obviously people that run the Rangers social media account. I don't know, but I think there's certainly a place for keeping an eye on it and just monitoring, and if that is engaging with the people that run said accounts for certain players, then so be it. I'm sure the players probably get a PowerPoint when they sign or something along those lines, you know. But it's like anything else. When you start a new job, you don't really listen to it, and you just go ahead and do what you want, you know. But I don't know whether there's potentially something goes on that we're not aware of anyway. But I think it would be something that would certainly be worthwhile for me. I'd love to do something like that. You're on mute.
Yeah, I think it would definitely be something that I would be interested in as well. Actually, it would be an interesting job to keep eyes on. But then, as I say, just to make sure that things are running the way that the club should be, that fits in with the club's ethos and things like that. There's a lot, I think, that they could get their teeth into, and also in terms of connecting them up a little bit as well for promoting things and making sure the players are promoting sort of club initiatives and stuff like that. So we could definitely go into things like that. Okay, doke. So before I on, so we've got our next bit here. So obviously we've had a look here. We've got 29 players there who have got Instagram accounts. So this is bringing us to the little competition here for you guys in the chat. Cammy, you can participate, but you cannot win as a member of the team. So we shall have a look here. So of those 29 players, these 5, Leon Balogun, Todd Cantwell, Yanis Hadji, James Tavernier, and Jack Butland, appear to be the, assuming I've counted them all right, the top 5 followed Rangers players amongst that group. So the challenge I'm putting to you guys in the chat, and the opportunity to put forward a chance to suggest a topic for us in a future stream, is to put these 5 in order. So what order of follow do you think they are? So the most followed to the least followed, and we'll give you a wee chance to have a quick think about that. So let's say we've got Balogun, Cantwell, Hadji, Tavernier, and Butland. So if you put them in order from most followed to least followed, and if anyone can get that bang on, then we shall,
everybody's just logged onto their Instagram account.
I know, no cheating. I should have said that as well. No cheating. Try and just guess off the top of your head. While
just quickly, I would have Hadji as number 1. I would have Balogun as number 5, and then the other 3, I would probably go Hadji, Butland, Tavernier, Cantwell, Balogun.
Okay. So that's
just a stab in the dark. Hadji purely because of his name. Yeah. I just think that he's bound to get. I think Butland because he's been down south, which I think you had sort of said before. But it's this will be interesting to see.
So while I give the guys in the chat a wee chance to wrap their heads around that, I wasn't able to fit it into the conversation before, so I just want to take a bit of time to thank Charles, who's put in a super chat to the channel. So a huge thank you to your contribution, Charles. We really appreciate that. He said their Dessers only scored 16 league goals, same as Lammers, not Rangers players, same as Hadji, etc. What are your something that was touched on yesterday in the chat as well? The sort of Dessers, Lammers, and Hadji, all 3 players that could potentially be out of the club. If you had to keep one, which one would you want to keep?
Out those 3 Dessers, to be honest, and that's just purely. I don't have an issue of him staying as one of 3 or 4 strikers, but I think he's at an age where I think if we can recoup what we paid for him, I think he's the one of the 3. I just think Hadji, the ship has sailed with regard to Yanis Hadji. He's been, that's what, 4 years since he came on loan. Yeah, 4.5 years, man. That's mental to actually think. Pre-COVID, he signed. Lammers, I just think the Netherlands is obviously the country where he plays his best football, so it's in both his and the club's interest. So I think in an ideal world, all 3 bring in £10 million. £10 million for the 3 of them. We use that £10 million to reinvest and bring in hopefully better quality. So but if one of the 3, it would be Dessers, but I would, come the end of this transfer window, I would ideally see all 3 away for Rangers.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few people that would sort of fit with that point of view as well. Okay, so again, thanks again for your super chat, Charles. So let's have a look at the answer of a question. We've got a couple of couple of answers in there from a few of the guys. So I'm trying to scroll back to them now. Find them. So the answers are as follows. So our most followed player is Yanis Hadji, which I think is might have caught one or two people up by surprise. But when you think about how popular he is in his home country, and obviously just the name Hadji, I think that ends up looking like an obvious answer in that context of his popularity. He's followed by Jack Butland and Todd Cantwell, both Premier League players in their time, so I'm no surprise that they've got higher numbers, I think, as well. So obviously Jack Butland, we saw when he went to Man United, he had that big spike. So that was a clue, an early clue in the show that he was going to be one of the top ones. James Tavernier, obviously club captain. He's been at Rangers for a long time now. No surprise he's got a lot of followers, I think. And then following up is Leon Balogun, older player. He's been around to a couple of decent sized clubs, obviously playing in Germany. But also the fact I think he's just, he's such a nice guy. It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people followed him simply for that reason. So I think having a look at, let's have a wee quick look through. Hadji, Butland, Tav, Cantwell, Balogun. That's pretty close. That's only one out there.
I think I got my Cantwell and my Tavernier around the wrong way, but the other three were right.
Yeah, those two are very close. That's what I thought. I thought that would be ones that folk might get a little bit out of sync. G's got the top and the bottom. His middle ones are out. So I think, and the comments can correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but I think Smoke Madraw might have the closest. He's got Hadji in the right place. He's got Butland in the right place. He's got Balogun in the right place. He's just got Tav and Cantwell the wrong way around, similar to yourself.
Yeah.
So it looks like if nobody else is going to correct me, so it looks like that Smoke has won that one. So well done, Smoke. You've gotten that one close. As I say, you get the opportunity to suggest a potential subject for a future pod. If you've got any thoughts, then you can throw them in the comments now, or I'm sure we can catch up with you. You can at me on Twitter or something as well, if you prefer. But yeah, if you've got an idea for a pod right now or before the show ends, then throw it in the comments, Smoke, and we'll, as I say, work something out for you. Okay, so that little bit of fun out of the way. I thought the last thing we would look at then is a sort of specific example of Rangers and the Twitter, and the Instagram activity that Rangers players are having. The two obvious examples that I thought that just came immediately to mind, because they both had, they've both had incidents in the recent past, has been James Tavernier and Todd Cantwell. So Tavernier, for anyone who I'm sure probably haven't forgotten, but a couple of weeks ago put out his highlight reel for the season, which he's done, as I say, most seasons. And then just recently you had Todd Cantwell also put up a video and getting into a bit of a one-on-one with a fan as well. So Smoke's put in his suggestion for a topic as well. Do we need to have more than one formation? I'm sure we can definitely make something of that, Smoke. So watch this space. Oh, and do old school formations still work? So a bit of a tactics pod there. I'm sure some of us will definitely get our teeth into that one, Smoke. So keep your eyes out for that. Cammy, so I've given these two here as a good and bad example, and I'll put out the reasons why I've done that and get your thoughts. Obviously, both of these got criticism from Rangers fans as well as support. So, like you said, these things can swing both ways. The reason I've said I'm kind of positioning the Tavernier one as the better of the two, and the reasons for this is a lot of people obviously. The major criticism was that it's a quote unquote highlights. I'm trying to get my fingers on screen here. Highlights reel. It's a quote unquote highlights reel, but obviously from a fan's point of view, you've not won anything. There is no highlights. As one person I saw on Twitter put it, if the team's had a bad season, you've had a bad season. But the way that I think he's put it up, he's just put it up. It doesn't say highlights reel or anything like that. It simply says 23/24. He's not put any other kind of spin on it. He's not, there's no Schussburger emoticons or anything like that. It's just put there for what it is. It's just basically, it is a highlights reel, but it's essentially his year in video. Comparing that to obviously Todd Cantwell's, he's got his music tagged in it. I think the tagline he's put there, "The best is coming," is a little bit misguided. My immediate thought to that was, well, you've been here, 2 years, a year and a half. The best should have started the day you put your foot through the door. Why is the best only coming now? But then the thing that really sort of took off and sort of went kind of viral amongst the Rangers fans in particular was a fan who I've censored out here, perform on the pitch instead of an Instagram video then. And he's replied back, "Clips are from me playing You Weapon," which I think was a bit of a as amusing as it might be, is a misguided comment in my opinion. But put it over to you. Do you think that's a fair summation of these? Did you like either of them? Did you care about either? Were you offended? What were your thoughts, Kelly?
I wasn't offended by either, to be perfectly honest with you. I think your summation of it is pretty much spot on. I think Cantwell could certainly have taken the advice that I said earlier with regard to limiting who can comment. With regard to that, I just think don't rise above it. If you're not going to do that, it's like, because ultimately what happens is, there's maybe 5 or 6. I've not got that much of a sad life that I wanted to scroll through all his comments just to see what the negative and positives were. But there could have been 5 negatives and 95% positive. It's always and I think he's reacted to a situation. He didn't need to get involved with regard to that. I think Tav, probably for the last few years has done this. I think we'll come to the end of 2024 and he'll give you his year of 24 highlights reel. If he's still, even if he isn't a Rangers player, I'd imagine he'll still do that. And I just think it's using. I don't have an issue with regard to the highlights reels, but ultimately, both highlights reels, if they were lifting the league trophy at the end of it, nobody would have bothered their backside. That's league title and a Scottish Cup sort of thing. But I just think Cantwell just, use the head a wee bit. That's clearly him. That's not somebody that's controlling his account. Somebody controlling his account has maybe done the compilation. He's added the music, or he's done whatever. He's then got involved in a sort of unnecessary discussion, comment, whatever you want to call it. And I just think that some people, when you make your mind up on a player, sometimes it's just constantly you're just looking for something to sort of nitpick. So in his position, he's been with us for about 18 months now. I just think the best is the thing that irks me is words. I just want to see actions, and that's old school, actions. The old adage, actions speak louder than words. You go out and grab games by the scruff of the neck, and then that's when that's your social media doesn't do the talking. What you do on the park against Celtic and in European games and matches that matter, that's what we all care about.
100%. I think, as much as one of the aspects of this, of whether fans, defend or criticise players, partly, it's directly connected to how they're doing on the pitch, how they're viewed by the fan base at the time. These are both players that are in slightly precarious places with the fan bases. Tavernier obviously has a lot of goodwill for his years of service, but at the same time, a lot of fans, think that it's the end and he should be gone. And then Cantwell has just been one of these players who, similar to the Sakalas of the world, it's just, he's done good things, but not consistently enough, and fans are starting to tire of that due to the lack of trophies as well. I think, one of the things for me, I totally condone, abusing any player or any person online for that matter. There's absolutely no need for any of that. But at the same time, like you say, you touched on Cantwell as getting baited by people, and if he allows himself to get baited by fans and snaps back at them like that, all that's going to do is, whether these are adults doing this or just little, 13-year-olds kind of having a laugh with their mates, all it's going to do is make them think, I've got him once, I can get him again, and they'll get more and more and more of it. From an opposition point of view, if I'm sitting there as a Celtic player, scrolling through Twitter and seeing this, I'm thinking to myself, I'm getting in Cantwell's head in the next match because he's susceptible to having words put at him. So I think it's a lose for him publicly. It's a lose for him on the pitch, and obviously then it doesn't make the club look good either. At the end of the day, he's the professional. He's the one. He's handsomely paid for what he does, and just like someone that's doing customer service, they're the paid individual who's paid to keep their head and remain professional, and even in the light of someone who's trying to give them a rise. And the same way that those people have to keep themselves in line. I think Cantwell needs to try and do the same, because it seems to be building as well. Because he's had quite a few. Let's see, there was the Shushburger or something like that. Was a couple of months ago. So I think it will only make the criticism worse that fans are going to bring to him until, as I say, we start winning something. As if we're winning and stuff, people will see it as banter, will take it as banter, and will reply with banter. But otherwise, as I say, it's just not going to. It's not going to end well.
I think, see, to be honest, I don't know if I've said this. I can't recall saying it. Sometimes you just need to read the room, and it's, just the Shushburger one was just, that's just, you've not achieved anything. I just think that's quite. I just think it's quite immature, to be perfectly honest with you. I just think it comes across as it's the kind of thing I would expect for a young teenager, not for a guy that's experienced and a reasonably experienced footballer, But it is what it is, and I think I just want to see those that are prolific on social media to do their talking on the park, more than words are cheap. Actions are what matter.
Absolutely. Do you think? What's your sort of as kind of a final point? Do you think that there's a responsibility for players, particularly in the public sphere of social media, to be role models as well in terms of their behaviours, or do you think that that's something that's they can just be as they are, and that's for parents and things to look after that kind of thing?
I mean, I think there is. I think it's a very cliched thing with regard to role models, and they are in a way role models. But I'm just reading the comments here, and that's the one. They are footballers, not politicians. Yeah, of course, but that what I'm trying to say is just read the room. I'm not disputing the fact that they are entitled to say and act, but I just think you're particularly within the Goldfish Bowl as a Rangers player. I think you're only bringing you're only bringing problems for yourself. And I think if you're trying to make friends and influence people, I don't think antagonising your own support and biting back to your own support is the answer for it.
Absolutely, and I think the perfect note to finish on has just been said by William here. We're making pods off of what Cantwell's doing outside of football, not what he's doing on the park, and that says it all. I think that's the perfect sort of point to kind of end things on. As interesting as this is, and there's lots that can be said, and it's still an interesting topic in and of itself. But I'd much rather we had 101 things to say about Cantwell to do with what he's doing on the park, the goals he's scoring, the goals he's assisting, and the trophies that he's winning. And I think, that's really what it comes down to ultimately at the end of the day. So, as I say, I'll take that point to sort of bring us to the close. If anyone's got any last-minute burning questions, and say them now. Do you have any sort of last summation that you want to say? Anything you want to just finish up with, Cammy?
Do you know what's funny? I remember talking to Scott about this a couple of days ago when he changed the topic matter, and he said, I was like, I don't know if how long we'll get talking about it. There's us an hour down the line. It just proves that any aspect of, this has been a bit wider than just Rangers, but obviously it always comes back to Rangers, to be honest. But it just shows you that we can make an hour discussion about pretty much anything, And listen, it comes back to Rangers winning, and social media, what they say on social media and stuff. I think you hit the nail on the head with regard to banter is then replied to with banter, but antagonising comments and biting back at your own player, your own support, I just think you leave yourself open to criticism. It's a freedom of speech, all that sort of stuff. But I just think that sometimes be a bit canny and read the room and use it positively. But ultimately, what you do on the park and what you're lifting at the end of the season is all that anybody really cares about.
Yep, 100%. As I say, winning makes players' lives so much easier, and in all aspects. And I think for myself, the main summary is just that I personally would just like to see them show a bit of professionalism and show what I think is the right sort of decorum for a Rangers player. I view these people in high regard, and I would like to continue to do so in that way. I'm happy with them, the idea of them saying what they want, but there is a consequence to that, as with everyone. That consequence isn't to say as I say, anyone has the right to abuse them. That's 100% not on, but they will get more criticism if they invite it. So, in my opinion, it's better for them to just not. If Cantwell's going to find himself getting snapped at the comments, just turn your comments off, and you can still post what you want. You can still put up the things you want, but then you don't let yourself get bitten into that. And as I say, I think it's just easier for everyone that way. It looks better for the club. It looks better for the player as well. It's like I say, it's not doing Cantwell any good to have all this talk around him rather than talk. I would rather we were sitting here talking about what he might be doing next season than what he's been posting on social media. Okay, so thank you everyone for tuning in today again. In the comments, again, loads of really good points being made, loads of great banter amongst everyone. I saw your comment, Paul. I will go back and look for your suggestion as well. Once again, thank you to Cammy for joining me this evening. We'll have another great show for you tomorrow, so please join us again, because and never forget that every night is Rangers Journal Night.